He's always had this indomitable will in whatever he put himself towards.
And I met this guy about 4 years ago, and I got to see him from being a badass man to going to down a spiral. Now he's a badass man again.
This indomitable will, it could take over into anything. It could span into his life, and I always feared one day it would span into his life in drugs.
They told me I was going to get 10 years in prison.
Oh, I love where he's at right now. He's happy. He's got a good head on his shoulders right now, and I believe he can go very far and do great things with this.
Big things. Big things going for him in the future, for sure.
I'm Forrest Young, and I'm a guitarist and a guitar maker. I've always liked working on guitars and playing guitar. I've been playing since I was about 15, kind of a late start, but I've always been really into it. I had an abusive stepdad when I was a little kid, so that's actually what got me into making guitars, because I had a BC Rich Warlock, this sharp, pointy, gnarly metal guitar, right? And my buddy let me borrow it, and I'm trying to learn how to play guitar, and then he took it and he broke it over the top of my head. Ripped my skull open. I've got a big scar about this big on my head from it, you know. And then I remember coming home and I had all these broken pieces of a guitar with blood all over them. So I decided I'd try to put it back together. So then ever since then I've been kind of into making them. And then fast forward a little bit, when I'm on the streets after the acid and all that, you know, I decided I'd go over to his house and I'd, you know, beat the shit out of him. So I did, and then I got arrested. You know, police come over, they put a shotgun in my face, they arrest me, and then
There was a time where he was not the same person, and that was frightening to me, because I didn't know if I was ever gonna have my friend back again, and so
I had an apartment over there in Culver City, and I was working on guitars with, you know, kits that you buy online that are like, you know, they already have the woodworking done, and then I just put them together and painted them and fixed them up and played them. And then I lost my apartment to a fire after being secretly dosed with 100 hits of LSD, and I was, you know, pretty out of it. That's the only way I could say that. So I come back, my house is on fire, and then all my guitars are destroyed, amps, pedals, TV, PlayStation, everything gone. So then I was wandering around on the streets for a couple months, not knowing what to do. So then they sent me to this rehab on Skid Row at the Midnight Mission on 6th and San Pedro. And then you know, my mom came and she brought me a guitar to play, so I had my guitar, and I would just go on the smoke deck and I would just play guitar for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. When I was at rehab, they told me after 6 months you could get a job and you can go to school. So they were taking us to a meeting, and I saw on the back of a bus the Musicians Institute Guitarcraft Academy, and I was like, oh, I've always loved working on guitars. I'm going to do that. So I went and I applied for a scholarship and everything, because I didn't have any money, you know. I was completely broke. I didn't have anything. I had no chance. So I go and I apply and I tell them my situation and everything, and then they gave me a scholarship and they gave me student loans. I qualified for everything, and then I went. There was about 15 people when we started, and then only me and 2 other people graduated. And you know, they trained me good. They trained the hell out of me. Like, I'm so much better at my job now than I was before then. Like, I went from just liking to tinker around to actually being a professional. So, and then while I was doing that, my dad is a landscape artist, and he was doing the whole front yard for M Shadows of Avenged Sevenfold, and he was telling him my story. Yeah, you know, his house burned down and he was homeless and all this crazy shit happened, you know. And then he was like, holy shit, I'd love to meet him. So then my dad brought me over there. I met him, you know, I jammed with him in his studio for a little bit. I got to play some of his guitars. I got to play, you know, he showed me the guitar that Slash autographed for him from the song they did together, all the Avenged Sevenfold guitars up on the wall, and we just kind of jammed for a little bit. And he's like, yeah, dude, you know, if you make a cool guitar, just bring it over, and I'd love to check them out. So I'm like, all right. We got 2 done that were awesome. And we finally get them done, and then I call him up. I'm like, hey, dude, you know, I made some guitars. You want to check them out? He's like, yeah. So then I remember going over to his house. I brought the guitars. He was checking them out, and he really liked the Les Paul version, or the Les Paul knockoff that I did, so they don't sue me. But I went over and we was playing it, and he was like, oh man, it sounds great, I love it, how much do you want for it? And I didn't even know what to say. I was just like, I don't know, man, like, how much do you think it's worth? And then we came to we made a deal, and then he bought it from me, and then it was the coolest thing ever. And I'm telling all my friends, hey man, dude, I made a guitar from M Shadows, check it out. I'm like, yeah, sure you did.
And I met this guy about 4 years ago, and I got to see him from being a badass man to going to down a spiral. Now he's a badass man again. I got to see it all transition.
Ever since then, after I got out of the Midnight Mission, I graduated from school. I got a place out in Oregon. I have a full workshop and a spray booth and everything, so I'm just working. I also do custom paint jobs on cars and motorcycles and stuff right now. But so yeah, that's all I do. I've got about 10 guitars I'm working on right now, and I'm just trying to get them all squared away and ready. What interests me about it is I really like to see. I go to a hardwood store and I get a bunch of pieces of lumber. And they're just big square pieces of wood, and I like to think like, okay, now it looks like that, and then when it's all done, I look back on it and look how it's changed, and it's like I've created this. It's like a guitar is a tool, and for a lot of musicians, it's a personal thing. Like they pour their soul out through it. They're channeling their passion through it. So I like to be able to make something that makes them happy and gives them the ability to make the music that they want to make. It's a cool feeling, especially when someone brings me their guitar and I fix it up and I give it back to them, and then they start playing and they get all happy and excited and they get all into it, and it's like, yeah, I was able to help this person make music better. It's the best feeling in the world. It's different to be able to control every single detail of the whole instrument. So it's like if you want a metal guitar, you can make it one way. If you want a blues guitar, you can make it another way. If you want just an all-around, wide-ranged sounding guitar, you can do it another way. Like, it's cool to have such infinite freedom and be able to make that. And it's so much cooler when it's done and you put all this work into it. You put the strings on it and you're done with the setup and everything, and then you plug it in and just blast it. It's the coolest feeling in the world. Like I made this. I just want to make as much music and art as I possibly can, and just become so successful that I can, inspire hope and motivation to other people that are trying to do the same thing. Like, I see people that are, in a bad place, and I see people that are homeless, and I see people, and I see where I used to be. Like, anytime I see a homeless person sitting on the street, I'm like, I used to be that person. That's crazy. Now I'm, making guitars and hanging out with rock stars and getting headlines and stuff like that, and it's crazy to me. So, like, I want to be able to make an impact on people and be able to